Hey everybody, my name is Thomas. I'm the Director of Product Strategy at Lansweeper, and I've been asked by the team to create a short series of videos about cyber asset attack surface management, otherwise known as CAASM. Now, I think the first video, I probably need to do two things. The first is what is CAASM? And secondly, what's the benefit of CAASM? What are people actually buying this type of product for? So if we start with what CAASM is, CAASM can be seen as kind of three elements, right? You've got the identification of your estate, so asset discovery, asset management, understanding intrinsically what it is that you own. So ultimately, you can go about securing and upholding the security posture of all of those devices and assets. You then have kind of the adoption then of I guess, a risk-based vulnerability management type program, which would include things like identification of risks and vulnerabilities on the assets that we've discovered, then the prioritization of those risks and vulnerabilities, and then finally dealing with them, right? Whether that be via orchestration, mitigation, patching, installing patches and deploying software, etc., or ultimately risk acceptance. And then the final piece of the puzzle is like so that it isn't just like an isolated solution like many products can be. It's about the integration in and integration out of data so that your CAASM product can be part and orchestrate your kind of entire product ecosystem and be part of all of your processes and policies so that you can be better at upholding security across the organization. So in a nutshell, that there is CAASM. So the question then is what's the benefit of having a product like that within your business? And if I'm totally honest, when I first heard a few years ago of CAASM and the CAASM market, having worked in the cybersecurity industry as a penetration tester and ultimately leading a large penetration testing team, if I'm honest, I thought it was a buzzword that wouldn't last very long. And the reason for that is because we've had these types of technologies for a very long time. So asset discovery, I mean, Lansweeper is 20 years old this year. So we've had that kind of capability for a long time. Vulnerability identification, there are many vulnerability scanners out there and ways in which you can identify vulnerabilities. Let's be frank, you can always identify vulnerabilities, like it's not a major problem. And then you've got prioritization. This has been somewhat of a struggle. We've been reliant heavily upon default scores that come from vulnerability scanners and from NIST for a very long time, but there's been an increase in popularity of things like vulnerability prioritization technologies, which is how I joined Lansweeper. I ran and owned a vulnerability prioritization technology company that Lansweeper acquired. And then you have the dealing of risk, and there's many ways of dealing with risk, right? As I mentioned before, you've got patch management and deployment solutions. You've got teams who are responsible for installing patches and dealing with the risks as they come up. You've got then SOAR products as well, and integration platforms as a service. Like there's many different ways of doing that. And then finally, the integration element of it, bringing tools in and out. However, having said all of this, there is an inherent problem when it comes to cybersecurity as a kind of function, not as as a team. I guess as a team, actually. Now, what I'm going to say is that there is usually, not in all cases, I've seen some organizations working perfectly in harmony, but in a lot of situations, IT and cybersecurity don't work hand in hand as well as they probably should. And what I mean by that is that when I was speaking with cybersecurity leaders for, over those last 15 years, one of the major areas in which they were trying to kind of work on and focus on was asset visibility. I need to know what it is I need to secure in order to be able to do my job properly. Well, IT people have been doing this for a very long time, right? And figuring out how you integrate, with the systems that they utilize and the policies and the procedures that they have can be quite a challenge. And what CAASM is doing and the benefit that it's doing is it's really helping to bridge the gap between cybersecurity teams, cybersecurity functions, and IT people and like their functions and their teams. However, one of the areas that we really think needs to be addressed, and I'll address this in the next video when I talk a bit about Lansweeper's approach to cyber asset attack surface management, is we feel that the audience who are benefiting the most out of a CAASM type solution are the cybersecurity teams, which is great. They need it. They have a very stressful job, and it's very difficult to uphold security posture or ultimately improve it. But IT teams are involved in the equation as well. Cybersecurity is a joint effort between all departments within the business. And the people at the forefront are the cybersecurity teams who are dealing with the identification of risk holistically and figuring out, what it is that needs to be protected, etc., from a priority perspective. But then you've got the IT team who is typically dealing with the risks and are being told by the cybersecurity teams what it is that needs to be done by when and how. So we feel that there is still somewhat of a gap within here. And being a company that has stemmed from focusing on the IT persona, the IT teams, we really want to focus on a solution that is very much kind of CAASM for IT. And that's what I'm going to talk about in the next video. So thank you very much for your time, and I'll speak to you soon.